Hi everyone, welcome to Manager IQ's Manager Skills Corner podcast. Manager IQ's mission is to provide an online space where managers can access all the resources, learnings and tools to build their manager toolkit, and also to provide you with a community of managers to lean on. This podcast is designed to bring experts in specific areas of management to share their knowledge and experience with the Manager IQ community. We share tips and tricks which you can implement into your management practice. For more information about Manager IQ and our products, check out our website www.manageriq.com. Now, let's check out today's episode. We're excited to have Sandra Maddison here to have a discussion about onboarding today. A little bit about you, Sandra. You're the founder of Inductions Made Easy, where your focus is to help businesses make their next employee onboarding experience stress-free, positive and successful. Sandra, your background has been providing meaningful onboarding experiences, designing workshops and learning pathways, teaching facilitators, building leadership skills, coaching and mentoring, and leading your own team, just to name a few. But welcome, Sandra. How are you today?
Fantastic. Thank you.
That's great. I'm so excited for this conversation. Onboarding is such an important part of the employee journey, so I can't wait to get into this discussion. I really did just touch a little bit briefly on your introduction there because I wanted to give you an opportunity to, introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about yourself, how you came about making Induction Made Easy, and anything that just helps to let the audience know why you are the expert in onboarding.
Awesome. Thank you so much. A little bit about me. I've been sort of in the corporate world for about 35 years. So I had a variety of jobs, from customer service, call centre, frontline, working with customers. I was a training manager for a few years with the recruitment portfolio, which was quite key. Been a team trainer, L&D consultant, and a team manager of a very large team of 22. And in each and every role that I had, I was involved with other people, whether it was being a colleague, helping a new person into the team, or whether it was my responsibility to onboard them directly. So all of these sort of little things through each and every job just sort of gathered momentum. And in my last role, when I was working for a large corporate, it was my responsibility to not only onboard staff, but to be involved or heavily involved in the supporting the managers to onboard them in a way that the company wanted. And we wanted it to be right. We had great processes in place. And what it did is it meant that everybody's onboarding experience was absolutely stellar. There was the odd exception, but those were the people that were usually recruited at very short notice, that didn't have time for us to do the wowing that we like to do as a business. The day one experience is just so important for everybody, whether their first day is in the team or whether it's in the group orientation. It is just so important. And when I started moving into self-employment, I carried that passion with me. My whole background is about learning, development, coaching. And when I decided that creating my own business was going to be what I was going to do, then it just seemed really natural to start doing the things that I loved, which was making a difference for people. And this was a way that I felt that I could do that. So through my own business, Inductions Made Easy, what I can do is I help small business owners, or small medium enterprises. So anyone that doesn't have an HR team on board that can do an induction for them, I'm there to help hold the hand, so to speak, of the business owner or the team manager and leader, just to make that process bespoke and right for them. So, it's not always a one size fits all. What works in one company won't work in another. So it's about working with that business owner to find out what they're passionate about, what they need, or the team leader to find out about what the business vision and mission is, and what their part is in it, and how they can onboard their new hires into the company in a way that makes the best decision or the best sense for all of them.
Fantastic. And, when I came across your profile, when I was doing a bit of searching for experts in this area, I thought, perfect. This is exactly what we need for Manager IQ, and particularly the Manager Skills podcast, is around bringing experts like yourself into a conversation so that we can help just give little tips and tricks to managers around how they can consider or think about these specific areas, like, say, onboarding. So I was very excited to find you. I'm very grateful for the time that you're spending with us here today to have a chat about this. One thing that we always try and do is we try and make sure that everyone's on the same page around what we are talking about. So, from your perspective, what is onboarding?
Well, I mean, like when I look at the term, my understanding is that onboarding is an HR term that's used to describe the process of introducing a new hire into a business. But I also find the word can be used interchangeably with induction, orientation, day one, first days. There's all these different ways that people refer to it in their business. So when I'm working with somebody, I find out what terms they use, and then those are the terms that we will use together. But when I'm talking about what I do and how I help people, I refer to onboarding as being from the moment that staff members signed the contract right up until the end of the first week. But I always encourage the business owner and manager to also have a 30, 60 and 90-day plan there, so that they're still supporting that new hire into the company and not just leaving them not like, yeah, done, dusted, right, I don't need to have anything more to do with them, but they're actually still focusing on growing that person into the company.
Yeah. And I think that's right. I think every organization does have a different approach to how they onboard. And like you mentioned, there's all these interchangeable words, but for the purpose of this podcast, we're just going to go with onboarding to be consistent, so it doesn't confuse the listeners too much. But essentially, yeah, like I was saying, every organization has a different way to onboard their employee. But the whole idea is around how you get that individual to understand as quick as possible what the organization is all about, what the role is all about, what the culture is all about, all these different aspects of that organization, so that they can get from where they are on day one to be the most productive, motivated, engaged employee, be it day 30, day 60, even some 6 months, say, if depending on the complexity of the role.
Absolutely. And I mean, the whole purpose of doing an onboarding for your staff is to help them understand the business mission, vision and values, and to build alignment between their own values and what they're doing in their company, because they're spending so much time there every day. It's important to be aligned. But it's also about finding their fit in the company. And when a person feels that they fit, when they'll feel part of the team, they'll feel part of the fabric of the company, and start really working hard on their targets and goals to learn everything they need to know to be the best they can be.
Yeah, exactly. I can't remember what course it was, and this is back when I was quite young, it would have been years and years ago, and it was talking about like a rocket ship, so if you don't understand where the organization is heading, so that the destination of the rocket ship, if you're going to be on that rocket ship and you don't know where you're going, you could be doing things that is going to send that rocket ship, even if it's just 1 degree off kilter, it might miss its target destination. So the power of instilling the information or the knowledge of where that organization is heading and how they're going to go about doing it, both from a task and a kind of behavioral perspective, so the cultural side of things, is super important to make sure people understand right from the beginning.
And it makes great business sense as well, because, before someone starts in a new job nowadays, they're often commenting on LinkedIn or Facebook, hey, I'm starting with such and such. So they're actually starting to promote you from before they've walked in the door. And then if they've built it up in their heads that, oh, this is a really exciting company to work for, and you don't live up to that, then you're losing out on all the investment you've made to get that person in the door.
Exactly. So sorry, Sandra, you carry on.
Oh, you go.
I was just thinking about, the war for talent, how hard it is to get, people into organizations at the moment. So therefore, how important it is that the experience that they have from day one is is going to be good. I remember them saying that, they're super motivated. People are excited on day one. There's a nervous energy, there's a change is good for people. And they've been sold this dream through the recruitment process. And day one is going to be their first experience of what it's actually like in an organization. Whether that organization is large or small doesn't mean that a person shouldn't have a good day one, week one, 30 day. So that's something that I recognize now even more so, that it's very important to get that right.
Yeah. I mean, retention starts from the moment they've signed that contract. And I think that's a lot of things that businesses don't understand. They think about it the moment that somebody starts saying, oh, I think I might go elsewhere, I might look elsewhere, or they see the CV on the person's computer or something like that happens. They're not actively thinking about actually, we want to make this person stay with us for a longer period of time. We want them to work with us and enjoy being with us. So let's focus on things in that way. It sheds a different light on it.
Mm-hmm. So you've been quite clear around onboarding starts from the minute they sign their contract. So if we were to cast, in most cases, and in your view, when would a manager think that onboarding has finished? Is there probably wasn't a clear line in the sand or a clear date, but from your experience, when can they assume that that's happened?
I think, there's two parts to it. Like, there's the, at what point have they completed any legislative requirements of their job? So if they're in construction or something, when have they completed all their health and safety? When have they completed any of the legal stuff that they need to complete in order to do their job safely? At what point have they learnt the company's mission, vision and values? Well, unfortunately for some people, they might attend an induction 3 months down the track. So that makes it a little bit hard to say, well, actually the first week. I would hope that they, even if they're not doing, if it's a slightly bigger company where there's a few teams and a few people involved and they do it quarterly, I would expect that in that first week that they cover those essential things off to start building the conversation and layering the information. So, within the first week, they should have covered all of those key things that are unique about this company and bringing the people on board. They should have completed all the visits to other business units if there's a few teams involved, or had the meetings with key people or key clients. Again, it's really unique depending on the business. So for me, it would be the end of the first week. But if there's technical training to do the job, then that's where, for some businesses, they might go, oh, well, actually, it takes us 4 weeks to upskill them on our computer system and now this and now this. So, for them, they might look at it as being a longer period. I don't believe that there's any right answer to that question.
Yeah, there's no fast rules. I agree. So sorry, I set you up there, but you're right. I think every organizational context is different depending on the complexity of the role and I guess the compliance nature of the organization that you're working in, the legal or whatever it might be. I also see as well as that some organizations, I remember one, I was just like, I don't think that I truly understand the organization, my team, my role, what was all involved until almost 6 months into the role because of it was a big company, lots of complexities. And then after talking to people, that it was a common experience. So I think it does depend on the role, the organization and so forth around how long it takes for you to understand. But essentially, I guess from a manager's perspective, if they can sit back and they see evidence of the employees' understanding of the mission, vision and values, understanding of the role that they play in the organization, the specific purpose of the team, the nuances of the role, have done the compliance and those sorts of things. If they can sit back and say that this individual has had that experience, understands it and is also starting to apply it, they could essentially see that, that maybe the onboarding can officially stop with the ongoing ability to, get feedback and support as they require it.
Absolutely. And I think that's a perfect way to look at it. And in that first week, or the first few days, I mean, like if again, it depends on the nature of the job that they've been employed for, but it's really important to finish that time to actually say, look, right now, here you are at day 4. You've done an amazing job. Is there anything that we've covered during this period of time that we need to go over again, or that you don't quite understand, or that you need more information about? Because then that hands it over to the next stage, and it lets them know that, okay, this is the conversation saying they've told me everything I need to know to get started. I've started to get started, and then to have that conversation about, how often they're going to catch up in the future to check in and see how things are going, and that's really important to signify to that person about where they're at now.
Yeah, I like that kind of almost stage it. You've finished week 1. This is what we have committed to try and convey. Has that been conveyed? Do you have any questions? We're going to move into the next phase. We can take those questions, or if you need to recap on a few things, we can do that too. So I love the idea of having those kind of moments where you have a little bit of a milestone, maybe we'll call it.
Are you a new manager looking to build your manager toolkit? Well, the New Manager Development Program is just for you. We cover 4 modules, which is looking at what is the role of the manager, how to set yourself up as a manager, how to set your team up, and then looking into the future. We have an excellent free trial that is available to all. If you would like access to it, please visit our website today, www.manageriq.com.
One of the things that I did like that you said a little bit earlier is that concept of layering the information, because as we all are aware, the first week, I remember like the exhaustion of a first week. You've had all this information at you, quite often a whole new set of language and acronyms as well, concepts that you might not be aware of, particularly if you've not been in that industry before. And so I remember a couple of managers saying, oh yeah, that was covered in such and such, but so was 100 other things, so it's around the layering of information. Maybe that's, touching it at a high level, day 1, and then coming back to it week 2, again, going into a little bit more detail, 6 weeks later, a little bit more detail. And then your culture should pick up the rest around, well, these are the things that we constantly talk about. So, and it starts to reinforce that information, and things start to make a little bit more sense. Aha, that's what that means. That's what it means to me. La, la, la.
Absolutely. And that's so critical. Like that first day, imagine if the way that you learn information best is not through hearing, if you need to see it. So those of us involved in learning and development of any sort, we're aware of, everybody's got different learning styles and learning preferences. But when you're starting a new job, it can be really easy, or when you're the manager, to want to go and just share absolutely everything.
Yeah.
And, I just remember seeing so many people's faces where they're just like, slow down the world. There's too much information. So if you're sort of thinking about it not as giving them everything on day 1, but staggering it over a week and layering it in a way that it makes sense. Now that I know this, this makes sense, so I can learn a bit more about this. If you're overwhelmed as the new manager with everything you've got to do for that person on the first day, that person is also going to be overwhelmed. And so by sort of taking steps to stagger the information, by providing it in different ways, like if you're sort of saying, what the mission, vision and values are, but it just sort of seems to sort of just be not quite hitting with the person, it's a great opportunity to sit them with someone else in the team and say, hey, I'm going to pop you with Joe, and Joe's going to talk to you about what they love about the company and how they align to it. And then they're hearing it from somebody else. So again, it's a different layer. That way there's a little bit more connection, a little bit more chatting, which is how a lot of people learn, and actually seeing it in action, make it physical, see it in action, show them the customers, show them a video from what a customer's experience of your business is. There's so many different ways that you can do that to reduce that overwhelm, to layer the information, and to make it exciting and interesting for the person.
Yeah. And it's such a tricky
experience to get right. You touched on there and how a person learns and how they take in information as a layer or something that a manager does need to consider, but also the balance between what's the organizational message that needs to be conveyed versus what's the team message that needs to be conveyed, and then particularly the role message as well, and when to do it, timing, all these different aspects of it all, while still ensuring that that person is having this wow and very exciting onboarding experience, like the wow factor. It doesn't all have to be super exciting, but it's a bit of pressure for a manager to get right, from what I've seen, that's for sure.
Absolutely. And I think that's the thing from working alongside managers and helping them with that new person into the team. Like, again, in large organisations, there's a training team. I've been there where I've been, on the spot welcoming new people into the team, and not knowing that, there'll be an extra bot at the table. And I'm like, oh, tell me more. What role are you here for? And then sort of, great. Well, look, you guys all talk together, and I'm just going to go and just check a couple of details and be right back. And you're sort of not wanting to let them know that something major's gone wrong behind the scenes, but you're definitely wanting to find out what's going on. So, you certainly know that in large organisations, even though you might think that it's perfect because you've got big HR and learning and development teams, there's still things that fall between the gaps. But the key is to learn from it and to put steps in place so that it doesn't happen again. And that's where having a support guide, having a manager's own SOP or standard operating procedure, so they know what to do, what to expect, and what they need to make sure actually happens. And even for smaller businesses, it's still great to do that, because it means that if you're away that day, you're the next person in the team, your team senior or team leader, whatever the case is, can then pick that up and run with it.
Yeah, awesome. So I like that tip. So it's around having structure in place that's going to help the manager organize the onboarding experience in the first instance. We had a checklist. I'm sure that's something that maybe you guys offer, and advice that you would give your clients at Inductions Made Easy. But it's around, okay, so a person is coming, what do you do at different points in time, and how can we get ourselves organized, during their onboarding, to make it as seamless as possible, and to not have to keep on rethinking each time, what do we do for onboarding again? What do we do here? What do we do on week one? Who do they need to talk to? What's their key stakeholders? Whatever, the structure might need to be, or the questions would be at the time. So I love that tip around having that structure in place, and then also having that structure available so that if the manager's not there, then somebody can pick it up in their absence.
Absolutely. One of my clients shared with me an experience they had. So she'd engaged me to work with her. We had this onboarding checklist, so we had a great session. She had the papers. She knew exactly what she was going to cover, how she was going to cover it, what was going to happen on day one, what was going to happen on day two, and so on. And it worked really well for her. And then a couple of weeks later, she had another new hire. So she got the salon senior to come up to deliver. She gave her the checklists. That new person was able to go through everything. The business owner was able to sit back and see exactly what was left for her to cover. But the best thing about the whole experience is that a couple of weeks later, the salon owner overheard a conversation between one of the clients and the new starter, and she was able to go through the mission, vision, and values, and why sustainability was important to this business, and all these other things. And there was other people there going, hey, I didn't know this stuff. So what it shows is that quite often businesses, they really focus on the new people and giving them the current information. They're sometimes forgetting that their other team members need to be brought up to speed on anything that's changed or developed as well. So, it was definitely a great situation to be in for that business owner, because she could sit back and go, yay, that was the best investment I made.
Yeah, that's fabulous.
We'll definitely come back and circle back to the benefits of a good onboarding experience. But just keeping on the theme of any tips and tricks, is there anything else that you would offer the audience here, particularly managers who are trying to get this right and make this experience meaningful?
Yeah. The most important thing, I think, is to remember that your new hire has got a lot of life experience and skill already. Mm-hmm. And, you don't want to be dumbing things down. You want to be asking the questions like, what software do you use? What operating system are you familiar with? Because if someone's worked on an Apple system and all the computers in the business are Microsoft, then, they're going to need some extra support to manage that transition. So build on the gaps is the big thing, to have that as your overarching principle. I think one of the best things is to consider your own onboarding experience. When, all of the times you've started new jobs, unfortunately, most of my experiences weren't that good. And that's why I'm probably a little bit passionate about this as well. Think about what works well, what didn't work well for you. Talk to other people in your team. What did they have to say about the onboarding experience? What were the gaps they thought were missed that were really important? I think that, you really need to be thinking about how you want your new hire to experience the business, because first impressions do count. I always, when I'm working with business owners, one of the first questions I ask is, what are you doing now? So some businesses will be going, oh, I'm not actually doing anything. So then we need to start from scratch. But other people are actually doing a lot of things that work really well already. So then think about what's worked well in the past that you've stopped doing that perhaps needs to be started again. Why did you stop doing something that did work? Was there other things happening there? I also encourage people to look at, what they've been doing and think about what they can do more of, what they can do better, what they can do differently, what they can do less of. So using that NBDL acronym is quite helpful, because it will give them a very quick picture about what they can do quickly to make a change, because you don't need to change the whole thing overnight. I've been involved in a corporate when it was taken over by another business, and so every induction that I ran over a 2-year period was slightly different, because more of the new business was coming to light, so we had to continually adapt. But you need to make sure you're sort of up at the play with that a little bit as well, that you're not again going to overwhelm people saying, this is what we do today, or this is what we used to do, but this is what we do now, because a brand new person just wants to know the now. They just want to know what they need to do. Think about the language you use. Is a good one that you mentioned earlier about jargon, because the term onboarding is jargon. I always find that if a manager sort of thinks about the words that they use and thinks about the questions they've had in the past and keeps a list and then gives that list to the new person, it will wow them on their first day. Because if they've got a little notebook and they can just capture all other jargon that they hear and know they can go back to the manager at the end of the day and say, I've heard these terms here and they don't, make a lot of sense to me. Can you help me bust them? So, that's a really cool thing to do. And I think finally the best thing, or the most important thing for managers to do, is be clear on their expectations. What expectations do they have of that new person? Do they want them up and running the same as every other staff member by the end of the week? Because that might not be reasonable, that might not be practical, it may not be fair. So it's about, how are they going to look at their KPIs? At what point do these become important to that person's progression in the business? And align with that expectations is finding out from the new hire what their expectations are. And that's about having that conversation about when is our time to chat? Is it going to be weekly to start with? Is it going to be daily to start with? Will it then move to fortnightly? At what point do I get you to myself so that we can actually exchange information and share where things are at? So all of those things are pretty important, I think.
Oh, there's so much. I feel like we could deep dive into each one of those and, and provide a fantastic, content for our listeners. A couple that I would touch on, particularly the last one around expectations, or the second last one. I agree. There's, especially when there's been an individual who's maybe left the role, who's been there for years, or was, the top performer, or had, whatever it might be. And then another person comes on. The instant expectation is that they are kind of just as good as that person, even though that person had probably quite a long lead up to being at that productivity level or motivation level, whatever it might be. So I think it is really important about resetting the expectation of the manager themselves, so I think that's fabulous. The other thing I liked around, when are those touch points with the manager and the individual to make sure that you are having a sense check around how they're going. But also just to kind of further go there is letting the individual know who their support network are. So who are the experts in this part of their role, or who's the expert in this part that they can then connect them with, so that they don't only just have the manager, they have a raft of different people that they can connect in with for different topics, I guess.
Absolutely. And you see when people, when you do that well, like I've seen people, like we'll give them a little hierarchy of the organisation, and then it's almost like a little hit list for them where they're like, bumped into them in the lift, I bumped into them in coffee, and I've said good day to them. And it's sort of about just starting to build that relationship, and remind people that everybody's equal. Just because someone might be, the owner or the head of or whatever the case may be, is that, they still appreciate that interaction. So definitely knowing who the people are that they need to contact or will work with in their role makes it a lot easier to build those relationships, because that's what it's all about, isn't it? It's about building relationships and understanding how everybody works together for the business goals.
Yeah, like we used to say, who's who in the zoo, and when will I need that part of the zoo to help me, I guess, deliver what I need to deliver. We've had a fantastic conversation today with Sandra on onboarding, and there has been so much knowledge and information shared. We want to ensure that we keep our episodes consumable, so we have decided to split this episode into 2 parts. So stay tuned for the next part, where we'll be covering the barriers and benefits to onboarding, how you can create great opportunities for your team to get involved, and how your onboarding process needs to continue to evolve. So stay tuned and look out for that next episode coming soon.
Thank you for taking the time to listen to today's episode. If you have any feedback or would like us to deep dive on a specific skill, please email us at hello@manageriq.com. Thanks very much. Have a good day.